Hi everyone, welcome to my channel Moviesnips. Today we're going to be discussing the different Ornithopter aircraft depicted in various Dune adaptations, mainly focusing on the Ornithopters in Denis Villeneuve's Dune movies with some mention of the Ornithopters shown in the earlier Dune adaptations as well. We're going to be focusing on the finer points of these aircraft, including their propulsion technology, weapons loadout, carrying capacity, and unique adaptability to the harsh environment of Arrakis. Before I get further into this, please remember to subscribe to our channel and hit the like button. The Ornithopter, or thopter for short, makes allusions to many of man's early attempts at flight, derived from the Greek ornithos, bird, and pteron, wing. The ornithopter is essentially a machine that attempts to emulate the flapping motion of a bird's wings to stimulate flight. Experiments involving ornithopters date all the way back to the 11th century. Leonardo da Vinci famously studied the flight patterns of birds in order to consider how the flapping mechanism of their wings might be adapted to powered flight. His elegant, sophisticated ornithopter designs were impractical, but decidedly imaginative, and influenced centuries of subsequent attempts until the Wright brothers constructed the first powered aircraft in human history in 1903. Let's begin by discussing the ornithopters from the 1984 Lynch movie. The ornithopters in the Dune 1984 Lynch movie were quite different from the aircraft envisioned in Frank Herbert's novel. They seem to have been powered by some kind of anti-gravity device with no flapping wings. I'm not a big fan of the Lynch ornithopters. In my opinion, these ornithopters look rather clunky and don't really live up to the expectations of how Frank Herbert would have envisioned them when he wrote the original Dune novel. They look very archaic and overly ornate. They don't appear to be armed with any kind of weaponry, although we do see a Harkonnen ornithopter dropping bombs on the Atreides forces during the attack on Arrakis. The terminology of the Imperium Appendix at the back of the first book describes them as any aircraft capable of sustained wing-beat flight in the manner of birds. The Lynch thopters clearly didn't seem to match this initial description. The ornithopters from the 2000 miniseries were a step up from those depicted in the 1984 film. These thopters likely used a combination of VTOL, aerodyne duct fans, and jet propulsion technology. These were truer to the original design and envisioned by Herbert, but still lacked the bird-like flapping of wings concept, which was described in the Dune novel. In this adaptation, the Atreides thopters seem to be armed with dual-mounted, high-caliber machine guns and bombs which can be dropped on enemy positions. The Harkonnen thopters look faster, sleeker, and more aggressive, and are also armed with heat-seeking missiles. The interiors of these thopters also look more realistic and up-to-date with computerized dials and monitors. We also get a brief shot of what appears to be Sardaukar thopters towards the end of the miniseries, but this is speculative. The ornithopters depicted in the Denis Villeneuve movie were by far the best versions in my opinion. These thopters best reflect Herbert's conceptualization of the aircraft. Their wings beat in the manner of birds, which is consistent with how they're described in the novel. They are likely powered by heart scallops, or bioengineered mollusks that are connected to a series of electrical leads in the wing sockets, combined with jet propulsion. The heart scallop power method is a completely organic, self-sufficient method of propulsion, requiring no fuel and minimal maintenance. These mollusk-like creatures survive by pumping vast amounts of air through their alimentary canals, thereby generating a usable form of power. The heart scallops would be positioned at the wing junctures and would connect to a series of electrical leads, allowing them to power the thopter's rapid wing beating movements. We get shots of the Atreides thopters earlier on in the film when Duke Leto and various members of his staff venture out into the open desert to inspect the spice harvesting process. These thopters are narrower around the middle, but more elongated from tip to tip, with aerodynamics that favor increased speed and maneuverability over added firepower and armor. They appear to be armed with forward-facing cannons or You'll also notice that they have four wing junctures on each side. The interior of the Atreides thopter is more thoughtfully designed, with the seats being arranged in tiered rows. If you look closely at the controls, you'll notice that the dial labels are inscribed in the Dune language, presumably in Galak, and not in English. The thopter's wings are set in the folded back position while on the ground, but move into a forward position once the aircraft takes off. They also have rear access ramps to allow easy boarding, as well as canopies that open up on both sides. According to the Dune fandom, most standard thopters can carry up to 6 people, 9 if the back seats are removed. These aircraft were mostly used for interplanetary travel between cities and continents, but could occasionally be modified for low orbital travel across short distances in space. The Atreides thopters remind me of the American Boeing AH-64 Apache military helicopter. They're sleeker, more agile, and clearly designed for fast attack runs in the event of a heated confrontation. The Harkonnen thopters share some of the traits of the Atreides thopters, albeit with some key differences. These thopters are wider around the middle and seem to be more heavily armored with greater firepower at the expense of more sluggish performance in the air and a loss of some maneuverability. The thopters also have 3 wing junctures on each side, as opposed to the Atreides thopters, which have 4 on each side. If you look closely at the interiors of these thopters, you'll notice that the pilot and co-pilot seats face forward, and the rear passenger seats face each other in a side-by-side arrangement. These thopters are also more modular, especially in terms of their weapons configuration. The thopter that Duncan manages to commandeer features fold-out, side-mounted multiple rocket launchers, and later, when we see Paul and Lady Jessica being chased into the storm by the pursuing Harkonnens, you'll notice that the thopters in this scene are armed with more powerful heat-seeking missiles. The Harkonnen thopters seem to be more reminiscent of the Russian MiL Mi-24 gunship helicopter. Then there is also the small 2-person Fremen ornithopter which Paul and Lady Jessica used to fly into the storm. This unit seems like it's built more for speed and convenience and lacks the size and sophistication of the previously discussed thopters. This thopter is also very agile and nimble. Despite appearing outwardly fragile, it took quite a beating as Paul and Lady Jessica managed to pilot directly into the eye of the storm. The sandstorms of Arrakis are deadly and can chew up almost anything in their path, so the fact that Paul and Jessica survived the ordeal is a testament to the build quality of this thopter design. This thopter appears to be unarmed but does have the afterjets that were mentioned in the original novel. How do the thopters of Dune compare to modern-day combat helicopters? They are similar to one another in that both can take off and land vertically, both can hover in midair, both can carry multiple passengers depending on the size of the aircraft, and both can be loaded out with an impressive arsenal of high-caliber guns, rockets, missiles, and bombs if need be. However, the thopters seem to be superior to conventional helicopters in that they are a lot more maneuverable in the air and are able to perform more complex dives and acrobatic movements, partially due to the jet-assisted auxiliary propulsion mechanisms that they carry. Some of the thopters are also presumably equipped with suspensor field generators to give them added stability and maneuverability while they're in the air. The thopters also don't need to refuel, relying instead on a self-sustaining power source. Just how fast are the thopters? I couldn't get a figure on the speed, but presumably about as fast as our fastest helicopters, possibly a tad bit faster. Another frequently asked question among Dune fans is why don't people just use more conventional anti-gravity powered aircraft on Arrakis as opposed to more cumbersome thopters with flapping wings? This may have something to do with the fact that sandworms get irritated by any kind of force field being generated by ships or vehicles on Arrakis, putting the craft in danger. Thopter pilots have to be extra careful on Arrakis, not only when landing or taking off from a spice field, but also in the event that they come face to face with one of the planet's deadly sandstorms with 800 km per hour winds. Also, thopters largely operate using a self-sufficient power source and require little maintenance, 2 key advantages that are much needed on the harsh desert world of Arrakis. How feasible are ornithopters in real life? Thopters are among the oldest concepts for powered flight, and prototypes were even made that prove that they do in fact work. Unfortunately, they don't scale up well to a size that is practical enough to transport cargo or passengers, and large ornithopter designs were abandoned in favor of fixed-wing aircraft and helicopters by the 1930s. The physics of flapping wings that simultaneously provide lift and thrust are complicated to begin with, and scaling them up makes them increasingly inefficient and potentially hazardous for travel. In a behind-the-scenes interview, Denis Villeneuve stated that he wanted his ornithopters to look more like insects, particularly dragonflies, rather than birds, in order to convey a more realistic and powerful impression to the audience. I'm looking forward to the upcoming Villeneuve Dune movie, and I think that there's a strong possibility that we'll see newly designed ornithopters, as well as a few other types of ships not shown to us in the first film. But what are your thoughts on the ornithopters of Dune, and what version of ornithopter do you like the best? I'd like to thank you for watching my video today. If you feel I missed anything or would like to add anything to this discussion, please feel free to comment down below. Please also remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe to my channel, and please check out my channel for more Dune videos.